Good day. We're here for another episode of Around Windsor, and today we are at Paradise Park. We're currently at the County Road parking area, and what we're going to be covering today is the logging operation that's been going on here for about a year or so, and I have, maybe longer than that, I have with me Hannah Dallas, who's the county forester that's been overseeing the project, and Jim Bennett, who's the chair of the Paradise Park Commission. So we're going to go take a look at some of the work that's been done and provide some of the reasoning behind it and some of the benefits on why it was done. So when did we start this?
We started way back in 2019
Okay, so I'm here.
to begin the planning for the updated management plan that was put into effect in 2022. And then we began planning for the work that was planned in that plan to happen in 2024.
Okay. So there's something in there that's like a year or two.
Yeah.
Like, okay, good enough. All right, well, let's take a walk in the woods and see what's been done.
Go ahead.
All right, so we've walked a little way into Paradise Park, and I think anybody who's been in the park over the last several months has noticed that there's some changes. And Hannah, you had mentioned that you started working on a management plan for this area in 2019, and this is part of that plan. Can you explain a little bit about what's happened, why it happened, and what we should see in the years ahead?
Yeah. So the plan that was started in 2019 was an update for the management plan of the park. Forest Parks and Rec foresters have been involved in management of this park for decades. So it was just following up on past management that's happened. I came in, I did an inventory of the trees that existed here, and what we found, I had a couple other foresters helping me, and what we found when we summarized the data was that there was a lot of pine and a lot of hemlock, and both of those species were in decline here. So I talked to the Paradise Park Commission and asked them what their goals for the park were. They highlighted forest health and forest resilience as two of their main goals. And so with that in mind, I prescribed doing some group openings throughout stand 1 of the park. It was divided into 2 stands. Stand 2 is the area off of Juniper Hill that was managed in 2015-14. And then stand 1 was most of the park and had most of the pine and hemlock in it and hadn't had any activity since the 90s. So with that in mind, prescribing group openings to diversify the overstory, initiate regeneration, and really get something else growing in the understory so that as the pine and hemlock decline, there's new young trees ready to fill in that growing space. So here is part of a group opening. The groups are one was 2.5 acres, and the rest are about 1 acre to 1/4 acre large. Here's one that we're looking at. The openings left a few trees that we designated with the L's, and then the outside of the openings have 2 yellow slashes, so you'll see those trees that were left. And then there was some regeneration that was growing up that was also left because we wanted to keep that diversity and those young trees growing. So we cut down the rest of the trees, and what we'll see here in the following years is that we're going to get a lot of young trees growing in this space. That'll provide a lot of habitat for all sorts of things, but birds especially really thrive in that young habitat. And then we also interplanted in some of the groups, so we'll get that diversity and really a jump start on those young trees growing as well.
Okay, so what was taken down? What types of trees?
Yeah, so most of it was white pine and hemlock.
Okay.
The white pine in this park has been managed for decades, like I said, and over the years they've thinned it out, so it grew really fast and really big. So a lot of people notice in this park that there's really big white pine, and some of these trees you see over here, we're not taking all of those. We want to leave some of those, but they are starting to decline, and we notice that decline when we look up at the canopies and we start to see a lot of fine twigs and dead branches in these trees. We also notice it. It's evident when we cut some of the trees down. We can count the rings and really see that growth pattern. And it's also really starting to slow down in those trees. So lots of white pine was taken out of this area. It went into lots of products locally. It went to mills in the state of Vermont and a few in New Hampshire. Became things like building supplies and other dimensional lumber and that sort of stuff, trim boards. And there was some hemlock mixed in these groups, but most of it was white pine.
And what's being replanted in these blue tubes?
Yeah, so there's a variety of species that we chose to plant into the park. Some of it was based on that goal of climate resilience and climate change as part of the future of our forests. So we planted 2 species in an assisted migration, meaning they're not present. They're native in this area, but we don't find a lot of them, and maybe they're much more present a little bit further south. So bur oak and tulip poplar are 2 trees that we planted as part of like that assisted migration. And then the other species are found in the mix, but not a ton in this forest here. So that's American chestnut. We're adding some of that resistant chestnut back in. That's a historic species that would have been here a lot more, but has died out over the years. And then serviceberry is another one. Northern white oak, another great wildlife species, but not found a lot in this forest because white oak just isn't really prevalent outside of directly on the Connecticut River Valley in this area, but should do well as the climate changes and warms. And then red spruce. I have a list of them.
Serviceberry.
Serviceberry, yep. Red spruce. I feel like I'm forgetting one.
There is no test at the end. So.
I know, but I want to
think
make
that's
sure.
it.
Oh, American chestnut. Yeah, I guess that is it. Yeah.
So you got 100%
I
even
got
if
a
there
lot.
wasn't a test. Very good.
Yeah, and we're gonna keep the tree tubes. A lot of people ask about the tree tubes. Those are to protect them from deer browse. So most of the trees we want to grow, deer want to eat. We didn't put tubes around the red spruce because deer tend to leave those alone, but everything else, since we spent money on the seedlings, we want to protect that investment. The native regeneration that's going to come up, there'll be so much of it that the deer won't be able to eat all of it. And we can't put tree tubes on everything, but the ones that we bought, we spent some money on, we want to make sure we protect those. So the tubes will stay on for probably about 2 years, until the seedlings start to reach out and the roots are established.
Well, and if I recall, we bought a lot of these tree tubes.
Yeah.
Who put them in?
We had a great group of volunteers on Green Up Day. So what do we have? Probably about 20 or so?
About 30, I think,
20
all
or 30,
told.
yeah.
Yep.
Great group of people. They came out in the rain. They dug holes. Some of these seedlings had really big root systems, and we had kids and parents and grandparents, and it was, great group of people.
So one of the comments I get is, so when are you going to come in and clean all this up? And I say, I think it's left there intentionally.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Why? All right. So lots of different reasons. So we took some products out of here, and those went into our local economy and to create local products. But then there was also some parts of the trees that aren't super valuable for products. They're what we call like pulpwood or coal wood, mostly like not worth the effort to move them out of the forest. And that's okay. So we said when I was working with the loggers, that was part of the contract, is leave the mess. Like we want the mess. It helps build back carbon in the soil. It helps to keep the deer from browsing the young seedlings that are coming up. It also helps to create diversity for small critters, amphibians, insects, all of that habitat. It does look like a mess, but this was even more if there was a wind event, say, as a natural disturbance in this forest. It might create a small group opening like we see here, but all of the trees would be just flattened in this area. And so working with some of the naturally occurring disturbance regimes as our guide to do forest management, while also being able to get some local renewable resources. We sort of mixed a little bit of both. So we left what wasn't very valuable, and then we took some of that value out to create opportunities in the economy, but also that the revenue from those products is getting put directly back into this forest. So with the planting, we're doing invasive plant management in the park, some trail cleanup, and just supporting the forest to be healthier into the future.
And that's another comment I get a lot, that there was a thought that this is being done purely for economic purposes. And while there is an economic component, it's kind of like a side benefit. As you say, the Paradise Park Commission earned some money for the material that was usable,
Yep.
but that's staying and working in the park to continue the management.
Yeah, exactly. So the goals of the management were not financial at all. There is that side benefit. There are some products in these large trees, but that wasn't the driving factor at all. So the goal was that forest health and resilience. And then there is that money that assists with like doing the invasive plant management that we couldn't do before because there wasn't money to do that.
Well, and I'm retiring here, like actually in a couple of days, and maybe, I know they have somebody picked, but maybe one of you guys should do it, because everybody loves Paradise Park. And no tax dollars go to support what happens here. So you do all of this stuff without taxing anybody. I apparently do nothing but tax them a lot. So maybe your mode of operation would be appreciated throughout the community. You left this telephone pole looking thing, like right in the middle. What's that about?
Yeah, so some people might be like, oh, that looks kind of ugly, but not to all sorts of bird species and flying squirrels and that sort of thing. They love these standing dead trees. They're called snags. There's another one over here, big elm that's more recently dead. And those trees, and quite a few of them, I told the loggers, leave as many as you can for, sometimes they have to take them down for safety. But whatever they can leave for snags or wood on the ground that was already there, please leave, because it's really beneficial to the wildlife. So we want to create wildlife habitat and really support any of that we can. And so we can see it way up the top there is woodpecker holes, and I'm sure something is living in there.
Okay. I don't think it's related, or maybe it is, but there's also been a lot of concern about the emerald ash borer. And I know there's been efforts in the park and around town to identify elm trees and things like that, but does this have anything to do with that issue, or do we know what the status is of elms in the park?
Yeah, so ash or elm, sorry.
Ash.
Oh, so
sorry.
No, that's all right. So emerald ash borer is in the town of Windsor. It's in all of the towns in southern Windsor County, and really spreading throughout the state. There are only a few ash in the park. I think there was probably like 4 or 5 that were harvested as part of this harvest. They happened to fall within one of the groups, but that was not a target for removal or for keeping in this park, because there just really isn't any ash here. Throughout the town, I think there are other efforts being made. I don't know if you know more specifically about them.
We did the inventory a couple of years ago with the urban forestry folks.
Yeah.
Right.
And in the park, the biggest population of white ash is on Pump House Road.
Oh,
There's
okay.
some beautiful old ash trees down there that are going to cause the town some problems in a few years. There's also a lot out on Route 44 out through the Narrows.
Oh, okay.
So you won't have to worry about that because you'll be retired.
Maybe just get in the way of me driving someplace, but
But there is a whole inventory that's been done, and it's online if anybody needs to see it.
good. And that is on the town website, and we can put a link to that in this.
Yep.
And then finally, some of the unsung heroes. The Paradise Park Commission just got an award from the state on forestry management. Can you tell us a little bit about where that came from or why?
Congratulations to the park.
Oh, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And Hannah, I think, is the one who nominated us, but we won the group award for
Volunteer effort.
volunteer efforts for basically for the work we do up here, which is separate from the work we're doing down in the lake and wetland, which
Yep.
is another interview we'll have sometime in the future.
Sure.
So,
Well, and I think it kind of goes back to a theme of living in a small community. You have an opportunity to really make an impact. That all you have to do is be interested and engaged. But whatever a couple of hundred tubes get planted, it's going to make a difference for well past our lifetimes. There are good people behind it. It's national or statewide recognition on what you do. And it's not really related, but a couple of years ago, the local snowmobile club got a statewide recognition for their management of the trails, and a lot of that is volunteer. So whether it's that or being a Little League coach, there's things to do in Windsor, no matter what your interests are, that can really make a huge impact on where we live. And I'm sure everyone would agree that Paradise Park is one of the gems of our community and well worth a little volunteer time. So, well, thank you for taking the time. Do we need to go anywhere else in the park?
I think there are groups that people will notice as they walk through the park. Some of the groups have a feathered edge, like in this area. This is part of a old growth, advanced old growth characteristics area. This small 10 acres here just inside the entrance. So it looks a little bit different than some of the other groups. The other groups that people might see throughout the rest of the forest are really standalone groups. So you'll have a group and maybe a trail connecting to another group, but its boundaries are pretty solid. This area, yeah, like I said, is a little bit different. So people might just notice a little bit of difference if they're paying attention. But yeah, people will notice those as they walk along. The trails are, sorry, this will keep going off if I don't turn it off right now. The trails are adjacent to a lot of the group openings that we made because that is the area of the park that's accessible. A lot of people know the topography in this park is very steep in some places. And so I do want to just highlight that there's only about 10% of the stand that was cut in groups. So as you're walking through the park, you might feel like it's a lot because a lot of those groups end up right next to a trail. But it's only 10% of the forest at this point. And we are really thinking towards the future of this forest. And so these areas will grow up. And then eventually it'll be time to think about regenerating other areas, because we are very long focused in our management of forest areas because they are very long-lived areas. And when we're thinking about regenerating, we see the change right now, but we're really trying to think about the change over time and set this forest up for a future where it's not degraded by invasive plants, where invasive pests that threaten things like the hemlock woolly delegate is near the park and threatens a lot of the hemlock. We want to make sure that this remains a forest. So people might see change and see trees cut, but it is forest management because these areas will regrow, and that's the most important thing.
All right, well, thank you for all this information. I think it's going to answer a lot of questions for our community. And why don't we take a look at one of the other areas that has had work done to it, just to see what you're talking about on the differences in approaches.
Sounds good.
All right, so now we're at another area of Paradise Park that's just off County Road and just beyond one of the trails in the park. And we're looking here at a water bar.
Yep.
So not what I was expecting to see, but so what's the purpose of this?
Yeah, so this is a water bar that was installed following the harvest. They came back in. Somebody might have noticed there's an excavator back here. This spring, they came back in and they dug out some ditches. So you dig these water bars so that the water coming down the trail here sits at the water bar and then moves off the trail. So it stops erosion that might happen on the trail. Part of the work that happens out here is demonstration work. So demonstrating the best forest practices that we have in Vermont. And water bars are definitely one of those practices. So
Okay.
they are required on current use properties, and they're also a really good idea on any other property that's had logging activity to stop that water, move it off the trail, and allow it to sink slow and spread into the forest.
Okay.
So some people there are water bars on just a few of the trails that people use. Most of them are between the trails where they access the groups between the trails. But people might notice them.
Okay. And they are part of the project, and they will be here forever.
Yep.
Basically. Okay. And this is much more enclosed than the other area.
Yeah. So this is part of that old growth, accelerated old growth characteristics and function. So some of this area was left intact, and then we're sort of between groups here. And then there are a few trees that were opened up around. So a couple of trees that were cut up there, a couple more up there, but much less of an opening, and really focused on opening up certain trees, releasing those crop trees and their crown, and not making areas for regeneration.
Okay. So a lot of thought went into making this chaos, huh?
Yes.
And we're going to be seeing benefits from it for years to come.
Yeah.
Is there a next step that is part of the plan in the next several years ahead, or?
Well, the invasive management will happen this summer. So invasive control work, that will happen this summer, and then a follow-up next year to knock back the invasives that are present in the park so that they are not the thing that are regenerating. And then we just sort of sit back. The tree tubes will be removed in a couple years once those seedlings are established, but the rest is letting it grow for the next 10 to 20 years or so.
Okay. Well, I think this is one of the most appreciated natural resources we have. The Windsor Grasslands Wildlife Management is another one. And one of the things I really enjoyed about my job is just seeing stuff like this. When you're not involved in it every day, you don't know how much effort goes into keeping what you think takes no effort to do. And meeting with Chris Bernier out on the grasslands, and the thought about land management, invasive management, planting the right things, it's really impressive. And the fact that we live in this little town and we have two such great resources, it's a great way to live.
Yeah.
So thanks again for all the volunteer help, and well, you get paid. You're the expert. But this has been great. Thanks for the information, and hopefully this answers a lot of questions for you.
And if people have questions, feel free to reach out to me, Hannah Dallas at Vermont.gov, and or find me from some other way. The signs in the park have my name on them, and you can reach me that way.
Great. Thanks a lot.